In a state where boating is big business, you don't expect to see a hybrid craft that flies instead of floats on the water. But for Stevensville former mayor and his friends, nothing compares with the sport of buying, building, and exploring with a hovercraft.
If you drive by Jim Cruz's house, you probably won't notice the Porsche parked in his driveway. That's because your eyes are drawn to the hovercraft, or two that might be outside. You'd be surprised to learn this is the hub of hovercrafting in Montana, a state where there's probably not much more than half a dozen. Jim has been buying and renovating hovercraft for years using his Navy skills.
I was a Navy nuke. I was a submarine sailor. So as a submarine sailor, we learned how to do all sorts of things.
In fact, fabrication and innovation are at the heart of this sport. You can't just run to a boat dealer for parts. So Jim has learned how to tear them down to the tiniest bolt and put them all back together. Friends will bring hovercraft for repairs and retrofitting with the latest tech like VHF radios and GPS.
I think it's necessary because if you're going out into like Puget Sound or someplace like that, I think you want to be able to communicate. It's not required because of the length of the hovercraft, but if you get in trouble, you're only one call away.
Jim isn't just an enthusiast, he's an ambassador.
You can talk to people before you buy, get in touch with somebody who has a hovercraft locally, and go out and fly with him and learn what it's about.
Well, Jim, you've sold me on the concept of hovercrafts, but can you show me what it's like at the real work? Can we go to the lake?
Absolutely. Let's go to Sealy.
Launching a hovercraft is different, a careful balance between lift and direction. This is an aircraft with similar precautions about props and direction. A nylon skirt keeps the cushion of air in place. One engine for lift, a second for thrust.
The thrust engine is a twin-cylinder engine, has twin mufflers to keep the noise way, way down. The lift engine has one muffler, and it's inside the cowling, so you can't hardly hear it when you're actually running. You can feel the craft running, and we do wear hearing protection because of the prop noise. But as you notice, as we were flying, we got pretty close to some ducks on the water. They didn't seem to mind.
Because there's no water resistance involved, the flight is smooth and turns are wide, but the trained pilot really needs to know what they're doing.
The hovercraft does different things when you get a crosswind, when you get a headwind, when you get a tailwind, even going across a boat wake. You have to pay close attention on what's going on.
Especially watching for the dreaded plow-in.
And that's where conditions are just right, where everything works to tuck the skirts under the front of the hovercraft, and then the hull of the hovercraft will touch the water, and it'll bring you from 25 mile an hour down to 2 in about a half a second.
Today, no such mishaps.
The far end of the lake closer to town got a little bit choppy, but it was really nice. We had a breeze about 8 or 9 mile an hour. It was just absolutely gorgeous. We get people waving at us. We get people, for example, we had 2 young folks out here. They were so curious, we gave them rides on the hovercraft. They just had a great time.
And whether you're in the water or above it, isn't that what really spending a day at the lake is all about in Montana?
Jim explains one of the appeals of hovercraft is their durability and ease of operation once you're trained, which is what makes them the choice for search and rescue. And yes, he does have to go through the inspections for invasive species, just like any other boat.
Now, had you been on one of those before?
Actually, I had a chance years ago to ride on one of the big ones in Vancouver. Canadians use those for Coast Guard units, and it'll handle like 10 to 20 people. So, but it was a totally different experience. This was a lot more fun.
That's awesome.